Hi everyone, welcome back to another Hyperight Data Talks. Today I'm here with Anton Delorme. Anton is a lead architect at Ingrid Capacity, and we will also have the chance to hear him speak at the upcoming 10th edition of the Data Innovation Summit. Anton, welcome. It's my pleasure to speak with you today.
Hi, Jana. Thank you for taking the time. It's going to be exciting with the summit this year.
I also think that. So to start today's talk, Anton, I would like to ask you, can you share a little bit on your professional background and what do you currently do?
Sure. I've been in software, full stack DevOps architecture for over 7 years now. It started with computer science at Lund University, and while still there, I got into full stack development in banking and payment solutions. But when I moved to Stockholm, I got the opportunity to join the AI department of the Swedish Security Service, and quickly moved up to solution architecture there as well. The assignment basically delivering AI and data-centric applications to counterintelligence and counterterrorism, which was, of course, during a very intense time in Sweden and Europe as a whole. So that's going to be an experience that's going to last with me for a long time. But last year, I saw an opportunity to join Ingrid Capacity. It was something to, it was attractive to be part of something new from the ground up, something visionary and impactful. But I guess it's worth saying that my entire career has been in high-stakes environments where reliability, security, and automation has been absolutely critical. And I'm now in a place where I get to apply this at the forefront of a very rapidly changing industry. And it's great to get to apply skills that I've learned from some amazing people along the way. That's really about me.
Thank you for that introduction, Anton. My next question would be, at the upcoming summit, your presentation will cover the topic of event-driven architectures, particularly for energy optimization. So can you share a little bit about what can the delegates expect from this presentation?
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm so excited to give some insights into how we do things here at Ingrid and showcasing how we've been able to go from foundation to greatness in a very short amount of time. The benefits of event-driven system design I think will become very apparent, and it often does when you draw it up. It enables automation, reliability, and speed. But like most paradigms, there will be risks to consider. And I believe strongly in being really open and transparent about those. And the tech culture any organization adopts has to face those risks and either accept that they exist or mitigate them as much as possible. As an example, my favorite is a sort of acceptance or embrace even of Murphy's Law, where anything that can go wrong will go wrong. And if you think about that, well, if we were to try and stop everything from going wrong, we would have an endless task in front of us. So it becomes more important to be able to detect errors, and then and that's monitoring, but then also being able to troubleshoot that, and that's the observability in the system. And this is especially true in an event-driven architecture. It can be very cumbersome and difficult to troubleshoot when it's all automated and all running in the background. But by accepting that we can't cover all unknown unknowns, we instead become really good at and comfortable handling unexpected errors and building up that fault tolerance that I think is really important in a system like the energy system. But ultimately, we'll get to a point where we can decisively say that this is how we've been able to enable efficiency, automation, decision-making, and reducing human intervention, which I think is important when you talk about AI systems. You have to lean into the black boxes that they are.
You touched upon detecting errors. So my next question regarding this would be about challenges. So what are some challenges you've come across working in this field, and how do these challenges regarding building and operating software in the energy sector, how do they compare to other industries, for example?
The differences here, I think, is interesting to explore, because if you ask the same question a couple of years ago, you would get a very different answer, I think. The energy system and the power grid in particular has been around for a long time, and so institutions and everything has been built up. But as the world is changing faster and faster, production, or rather consumption is increasing. The electrification of transportation, for example, but also data centers with AI and all that. It puts everyone on their toes, and that can be really difficult for a monolith like the power grid. And much like you would in software, what do you do with a monolith? Well, you try to break it apart, and you try to make it more modular. And that's sort of where the industry is in the middle of at the moment. And that of course requires everyone to think outside the box, requires everyone to be flexible. But at the same time, like I said, it's been around for a long time, and it's a very foundational technology. So it is considered a critical infrastructure, and as such, obviously we need to uphold the highest standards of security and resilience. And this, with a lot of regulation, can be at odds with innovation and flexibility. But this is where we try to phrase that challenge into an opportunity instead, where we try and maximize the efficiencies and the potential of the digital space, especially now with AI, with a scalable cloud and so on. And in particular, Ingrid, at Ingrid Capacity, we have the physical assets as well. So we're trying to be the leaders here in the digital space of optimizing the assets, but with the assets in the physical assets themselves, we get a lot of knowledge and connections to the grid and about the grid. We have a lot of information about each asset themselves and can optimize locally and per asset. The more variables we have, the more we can perform, the better we can perform. And to complete that trifecta, you got the digital, the physical. We also have the financial modeling, ensuring that we get data from all sides and angles of to structure the financial models to work long-term and be viable for everyone involved. And so that's just to bring up how the industry is quite different from all the other ones I've been in banking, law enforcement, a little bit in insurance as well, is that we can all say that we want to work cross-functional, but in this industry, we really have to. We actually have to be a cross-functional organization. And I find that to be incredibly motivating to really work together with all partners.
You also mentioned black boxes. So these systems, especially when they involve AI, can sometimes feel like black boxes. So how do you make it more transparent and more observable at the same time?
Yeah, tricky. I think one of the strategies that we've employed, like, of course, we need benchmarking and we need metrics and we need to follow up continuously. But there's also a point to be made about that it's in our human nature to want to control everything. And sometimes a black box needs to be a black box, and we need instead to build the trust around that system. We don't need to know exactly how everything works in the black box itself, but if we can continuously evaluate and create that feedback loop, that becomes a lot easier to handle. To give you a concrete example, like when we spit out the output of our, since we're bidding on markets and whatever bid schedule we have per asset per hour, we don't allow changes to that schedule by a human, because instead we want that feedback to go back to the start and to the implementation. And of course, over time, this means that we can automatically figure out how did it go, how can we improve, and I think that's much more important to enable. But yeah, it goes back to standards of logging, having metrics, having alerts, so that you know when to take action.
And one more question I would like to ask, or maybe two. Speaking of scalability of these platforms, of these cloud-based platforms, scalability can sometimes be a challenge. And what strategies or tool, in your experience, have been most effective to ensure scalability?
We are on the Google Cloud platform, and that has enabled a tremendous scaling capabilities for us. And one of the challenges we have is that it's almost too easy. It's too easy to scale, and it quickly becomes overwhelming with the size and number of services we can deploy. I think that's an interesting challenge that you might not think about anymore. But the provisioning of hardware, provisioning of databases, provisioning now with Vertex AI and the like, it becomes very, very easy for us to scale. One of the things we do to mitigate the risk of this going too fast is by simplifying and reducing the offering from Google. And that's not to say that we can't use all the bells and whistles. We obviously want to, but when starting, it's much easier to just start basic. What are the MVP requirements, and then building on top of that in succession. Because if we were to try and take everything at once, I mean, there are some great examples of benefits in, say, a PubSub, but we don't enable all of those settings from the start. Instead, we let need drive that improvement. So we use that by creating some templates. Most systems will need some kind of API, some kind of front end, some kind of database. And if you have the MVP template, that's really easy to start working from, as well as opinionated defaults. I think that's largely in the role of a DevOps engineer or a platform engineer to determine, well, what are the best practices we want to enforce, and so that the data scientist or the application developer does not need to care so much about networking or security. It's just those are defaults. But if they want to have something different, they can. And that's really important when we are in this scaling phase, is that we have to accept that we don't know exactly where we're going to go, and we need just the opportunity to make those changes. So opinion defaults, templates has been absolutely key, I think, in our journey. But then, of course, anything you can do to stay up to date with the cloud providers. We get a lot of help and communicate a lot with our Google reps, and that's been super helpful for us to get anything from actual concrete help with a problem we're having, or getting previews of new features.
Thank you for that answer, Anton. And one more question to sum this whole conversation today. When looking ahead, what do you expect to see as the next breakthrough when it comes to architecting these AI-driven systems, especially for energy optimization, or even in general?
Sure. Well, in AI and ML specific, I'm not an expert in that, but I can speak a lot to how to connect it and how to deploy it. Like you said, the architecture of it. And I believe that for us, it's really important to be aware that the consumption and production patterns of the energy market right now are evolving, and they're changing. And so we need to be really ready for data drifts, model degradation, and be ready to always keep an eye out on that. But coupled with that, I think it's really interesting what we're doing right now as well, is that, so historically and where I've been before, ML training and AI models have been produced on the side of a production system. And I think it's much more ready to actually be part of the production system and cycle itself, where training is not done on the side. It's actually part of the evaluation, part of the continuous integration. And this is something that we do at Ingrid as well, because it goes hand in hand with if it's changing from day to day, then we can't be intervening manually. Instead, we need to trust the system, build up the trust, build up the feedback loop, and that's where I think it's going to keep going.
Thank you, Anton, for today's talk. I'm sure that everyone who is listening will find it as engaging as I did. And for anyone who is interested in these topics, we invite you to attend Anton's presentation at the Data Innovation Summit. I'm sure that it will spark some interesting discussions among you and the other peers. Thank you again, Anton, and see you there.
Definitely. Thank you, Jaina. It'll be fun.